Good afternoon. Sorry about that, everyone. We're going to get started. My name is Marianne Maestas. I'm the local entity infrastructure capital improvement plan coordinator at DFA in the new Capital Planning and Policy Bureau. And joining us today is Tasha Martinez from the Capital Outlay Bureau at Aging and Long-Term Services Department. Thank you all for coming today for our first ICIP training of the year. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We would appreciate if folks could stay muted during the presentation, just to reduce background noise in the recording. And everyone else has their videos off, but if you all can keep your videos off, that would be appreciated. Our new bureau is at a new building and we don't have very good internet right now, so just to help with bandwidth. And feel free to add any questions in the chat and we may answer any questions you all have as we go along, and there will also be additional time at the end to answer any of your questions. So this is our agenda for today and some of the things that we will review. We'll review current deadlines and important dates that you all should know, as well as just give a basic overview of how to enter projects, especially for those who are newer to the process. We wanted to provide a demonstration on how to enter projects. And Aging and Long-Term Services will also be available to answer any questions you all have. And now we'll kick it over to Scott Wright.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Wright. I'm the acting deputy division director of the infrastructure division. And I'm also the bureau chief for the Capital Planning and Policy Bureau. So just a quick update on what some of our functions are. First and foremost is the ICIP, so that we can assist senior centers, municipalities, counties, water districts, whoever might want to use this as a planning tool to plan their capital projects. It's highly encouraged. It has proven, especially over the last few years, to increase your chances of funding. And Marianne is the local ICIP coordinator, and she is just phenomenal. So please reach out with any questions that you may have of her. We also coordinate with the executive and the legislative bodies when we start to discuss the capital outlay bill itself. And once the capital outlay bill is finalized, if you all are familiar with going through the questionnaire process, in terms of whether your project is ready, your appropriations ready to issue a grant agreement, we also review and approve that process if it's funded through the general fund.
You're on the wrong one. You're on the one I'm on, and I asked you to do the other one.
Okay, sorry. It's not me, I promise. We also oversee the CPMS, which is the capital reporting after a grant agreement's been issued, and you all start to encumber funds and expend funds. We oversee that process. So if you have questions about usernames, passwords, what you're supposed to do in CPMS, we are the correct stop. And I wanted to let you all know this is the last year that we will probably be using the ICIP and CPMS system as you know it. We have a much better system that's in development right now. We're testing and we're hoping to release that out in July of this year. And then lastly, because we are a new division of DFA, we are also responsible for updating policies for this newly created division. So with that being said, I will turn it back over to Marianne. And Marianne, I will monitor the chat to see if there's any questions for you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Scott. And I did my best to try to mute some of the folks that were unmuted, but we may have to do that again. So this is these are some of the staff that are in the Capital Planning and Policy Bureau. There's Scott Wright, there's Ryan Serrano, who's the state agency ICIP coordinator, myself, and then two other folks that some of you all who are in rural and frontier areas of the state, Michael Gilmore and Jason Quintana, are the new rural and frontier equity ombuds. And this is their contact information, and they're really here to be a resource for you all, whether it's trying to figure out how to do something or trying to get more information at an agency that you haven't been able to contact. They are here and their resources. And then our IPDD division director, who's Wesley Billingsley. And then here are the contacts in the Capital Outlay Bureau. And you all probably already know most of these folks because they're your go-to folks at Aging and Long-Term Services. Tasha, did you want to say anything about some of your staff?
Hi, everyone, and I wanted to thank you, Marianne, for allowing me to join you during this presentation. Really quick, just want you to know that we do have specific PSAs, and those are identified by the counties. So if you're not sure what your county is, you can always reach out to us. Our main email address is capital.outlay@altsd.nm.gov, where you can send any general questions. If not, feel free, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our information is also at the bottom of our webpage. I'll be posting that in the chat shortly. So just know that someone is always available to answer a call or to follow up with an email. So just get in contact with us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tasha. So what is an ICIP? As most of y'all know, an ICIP is a planning tool that is coordinated by the state, and it's really a tool for your entity to help plan your infrastructure needs, whether they're maintaining a facility or if it's new infrastructure that your entity needs or is planning for in the future based on emerging needs. The ICIP is a tool that you all can use to plan that. And it is really a roadmap also to help secure funding elsewhere. I know capital outlay is a really beloved funding source, but there are lots of other funding sources out there, whether it's federal funds, other state funds, or private funds. It does cover a 5-year fiscal period, and the current period that we're in is fiscal year 2027 to 2031, which is July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2031. So you are able to plan out multiple years in advance. You don't just have to plan out for fiscal year 2027, although some entities will only plan out for 1 or 2 years. They won't go as far, but some of our bigger entities, like a lot of counties and municipalities, will plan out up to June 30th, 2031. And entities develop, update, and submit their plan annually to, it used to be the local government division at DFA, now it is the infrastructure division here at DFA. And counties, municipalities, senior centers, meal sites, special districts, tribal governments, state agencies, and higher education institutions all prepare their ICIPs annually. And you all know this, senior center facilities do submit a separate ICIP from their local government, and senior centers and meal sites have different entity codes so that they are able to develop and create their ICIP separate from the county or the municipality that they're a part of. And yeah, so everyone has their own entity code and their own password. But some things that an ICIP is not, it's not a wish list, it's not a funding application, it's not a funding source, and it's not a capital outlay request. And those are some of the it's mistaken. Some folks think if they develop their ICIP and they submit it to DFA that they then are submitting a capital outlay request or they're submitting some other kind of funding request. And that's something that we are trying to break down because, you know, we don't want you all to miss capital outlay deadlines. And we also want to help you find other funding sources. And this tool that we have developed is distributed and reviewed by legislators who do, make these capital outlay funding decisions. It's also reviewed by the governor's office and other stakeholders, the public and decision makers, because it is published on our website, so it is available for the public.
But like a scarf.
Let me just find whoever's unmuted to mute that. Okay, perfect. And so I put the ICIP in the middle of this little puzzle because, like I said before, it is a roadmap and it is a piece of the puzzle to try to get your project financed and completed. And on that note, a part of the Infrastructure Planning and Development Division, you may have heard about the Capital Navigation and Funding Assistance Bureau. And we really encourage any entity that is having difficulty funding their project or wants assistance trying to find other funding sources, other grants, whether it's state or federal, to reach out. So you can reach out to Haley Brown for now because we are in the process of hiring another funding navigator. But we are also hosting a Capital Connect Hub monthly, which is the fourth Monday at 2:30 p.m. And if you go to our website, you will be able to find this information for the Capital Connect Hub. Or if you would like, there's a QR code here that you could use your phone to scan and also find the information for. Otherwise, you can also reach out to me and I can also send you the information for this if you're not able to find it on our website or use the QR code.
Marianne, we have a question from Thelma Martinez with Rio Arriba County. She said, we have 9 senior centers in Rio Arriba. Does each center have to be entered separately?
Yes, they do. Rio Arriba has
yes, they do. I believe Rio Arriba does have separate entity codes for their senior centers. And if you all have any new senior centers, we can get you set up with the entity code and password. But I would encourage you to utilize the separate entity codes that all of your senior centers have and create their own ICIP. And from my point of view, it's not too much extra work and it allows you to rank the priorities, the infrastructure priorities or equipment priorities for each senior center. Do you have anything to add, Scott, on that note?
No, that was great. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So here are the new submission deadlines for the ICIP, and they were just posted on our website yesterday. So I apologize for them being a little bit late, but they are similar to last year. So senior center facilities and meal sites should submit their ICIP by Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. And some folks have already reached out about the resolution that's required to submit with your ICIP. If you need to submit your resolution later on because your county or city government is going to adopt a resolution for all their ICIP projects later on in the year, you may do that. Just reach out to me and let me know if you do need an extension on getting your resolution after May 14th. And we will review entities' ICIPs on a rolling basis when we start to receive notice that entities submitted their ICIP. So and we will notify you all if we see any errors or mistakes that should be corrected. Because if you do a capital outlay funding request, you're able to pull your ICIP data into the Legislative Council Services website. And if some of that data is wrong, that won't be great for your capital outlay request, as well as the information does get posted on our website, and we don't want you or entity to have any mistakes listed on your website or on our website. And then our final publication will be in October, and it'll be available for stakeholders, your legislators, and the general public. And later on in the year, usually like November, December, possibly January, the information will get published on our dashboard. And like Scott said at the beginning of this workshop, in the summer, we are launching a new ICIP website and database, but we will transfer all the data from the current website to the new website, and more information about this transition will be available later on in the year. But this is also one of the reasons why it is important to fix any mistakes or errors on your ICIP projects if they're found by us. And here are some of the resources that are on our website for you to complete your ICIP. And I will show you all where these resources are exactly. But we have the data entry manual, which you can follow step by step, and it shows you how to enter projects on the website. We have guidelines, which also has some other resources listed on it, like other contacts that might be useful to use to complete your ICIP or to create an ICIP, as well as the specific submission specifications and what you need to submit in order to have a complete ICIP. Because it's not necessarily complete if you submit it on the website, but you don't let us know that you submitted it and include the signed resolution from your governing body. We also have a checklist that you don't submit to us, but is just as a resource to help make sure you're not missing anything. And then we have recorded trainings from 2024 that the local government division hosted. And a lot of those trainings are still applicable this year. Some of the information is dated, like the deadlines and all of that, but they are still a resource that you may use. And so the required submission documents is a signed resolution from your governing body adopting your fiscal year 2027 and 2031 ICIP and the projects on it. A new user access form, which is not required for every entity, but we ask that you fill it out if you have new employees or staff that have joined you so that we can update our records. And we also know who has access and who may be completing your ICIP on behalf of your senior center. And then we have an online form, which needs to be updated. But it's just like a really quick form where you add your entity name, your entity code, contact information for your entity. There's a question that asks you to certify it and to say that you completed it and it's done, as well as other information that you may need. Your resolution, you will need to email it to us this year instead of submitting it on the online form, but there will be an email address that you can submit it to. So you have your completed ICIP, you get it adopted by your governing body, and then you complete our online submission form and attach and send the resolution to us. And then over to you, Tasha.
Sorry about that. It took me a minute to find where I was at. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this presentation and informational presentation. I wanted to go back a little bit. So I'm the Capital Outlay Bureau Chief for Aging and Long-Term Services. We're the ones that work with the capital outlay that goes through the legislative process. But I want to kind of just go over, spend a couple minutes on what our process is and the application. Right now, the application for capital outlay for the funding cycle of 2026, so it'll go before 2026 legislative session, is open until April 8th. I went ahead and put my information in the chat. One of those is an email address, and the other one is our webpage. On the webpage is all the information from training to manual to other documents you can look at to get ready and apply for capital outlay for your senior center. So with that, the ICIP, as Marianne has mentioned, is a planning tool. It's a great opportunity for those stakeholders that are outside of your organization and within your organization to identify and kind of forecast what the needs are going to be within the next 5 years. So again, as Marianne mentioned, we're looking at legislators are going to be reviewing the ICIPs, the governor's office, and other key stakeholders are going to kind of look and be able to kind of plan and map out what the needs are going to be. Is it going to be more new construction, or are we looking at a lot more code compliance or renovations? So this is a really great tool for entities to use to let the key stakeholders know what's coming. With that, for the past quite a few years, the application for us has required that you submit your ICIP. We do review these because we want to make sure that this is being talked about, that this isn't just something that just got thrown in, that we're going to add, more bathrooms or renovate or any of those things, that there has been discussion between you and the key stakeholders within your community that are involved with fiscal management or deferred maintenance or any part of the entities within that are responsible for your senior center. With that, we do ask that you are updating your ICIP on this, and I'll go over that in a little bit. But I wanted to go over the application again. So the deadline is April 8th. It is midnight. I really hope nobody is submitting an application that late, but I have a feeling, I know of at least 2 of you guys that will be turning it in really late. This year, we've switched to Bonfire. We have tried to streamline the process to make it more accessible for you. We do, from what we've heard from a few of you guys, that you guys do like the new streamlined process. It's easier to manage. We have done a step-by-step manual that will take you through the entire process from creating an account with Bonfire to submitting and uploading all of your documents. So that ends April 8th. We hope to notify all applicants whether there's going to be information if the project is going to move forward and end up on our ICIP or if it wasn't going to be scored. And then we submit all of this information on our ICIP. That deadline is June 30th, 2025. So I'm going to run through just really quick before we go to the next slide, Marianne. I want to go through the application process. Now, this year, you'll notice that we started the application June 8th to April 8th. One of the reasons that we moved it back was because it was falling in line with the ICIP and it was confusing senior centers. And we want to make sure that we weren't causing any more because budgets were due at this time. So we decided to take it back originally to January to have the application open. As I mentioned, we have it running through Bonfire. This should streamline. We've taken out questions. We've added a couple questions, but one of the major things we took off is the subject matter expert forms. Those are gone. I know, I can hear the clapping. I know that those were really difficult to get completed, and we know that working in rural areas, it's difficult to find a subject matter expert, so we've deleted that. We have added a couple of questions, and one of them is about deferred maintenance. We want to make sure that as these projects are being applied for, that there's going to be deferred maintenance from the fiscal agent to make sure that there's going to be ongoing maintenance and management of these. So that's going to be the next step that we're working through. Sorry, Marianne, you just can stay on the deadline page. I promise I'll get to the next one. Promise. So after the applications are all going to be submitted, the site will close and we will start reviewing applications. Team will be going through and identifying that all the documents match what we need. If we find an application that's incomplete, someone will be reaching out to that applicant and trying to get the information completed so we can get that application ready to be scored. The applications will then go to 3 teams to review. Those will be identified later. And last year we scored, we had 167 applications that were submitted and 105 made it through to our ICIP. After we review all of the applications, we'll reach out to those entities and provide information on if they're moving forward to our ICIP or again, if they haven't. After that, then we wait, we present our findings or recommendations to our cabinet secretary, and then we present it to the ICIP. Later on in the year, between July and August, I think even a little bit later than that, we have hearings with Legislative Finance Committee so we can present. After that, we wait for the legislative session where, again, we wait for more hearings to be presented, and then we wait to see which bill is going to be identifying those authorizations. I have a feeling things are going to be changing in how that works, so I will keep everyone posted on that. Depending on the type of funding cycle, it can take anywhere from a year to 18 months for the projects to get funded, so be patient with us. We try to get those award letters out to you as soon as possible. When you get an award letter, you there's a few steps before that, but just know that our team is going to be working really quickly and as effectively and efficiently as possible to keep everyone who has applied for funding and has moved through the scoring and made it to our ICIP to keep them updated. Okay, that was a lot. I'm going to take a breath. Now you can switch to the next slide. Thank you, Marianne.
Perfect, Tasha. Just making sure. Do you want to go through your other slides?
Yeah, if we can go
okay,
to the next one,
good.
I promise I'll stay on script now. So we can go to the next slide, and then I know you were going to do a presentation on submitting an ICIP, but you can go back one. You can go to slide 12. There we go.
Oh, perfect.
If you want, did you want to go through your ICIP, or would you like me to cover these slides, Marianne? I'm sorry.
Whatever works for you. Do you want to cover the slides first?
Sure.
You seem to be
We'll
on a
go
roll.
through
Okay,
slide
sounds good.
13. So
Okay.
within our application, you're going to notice that there's going to be some spreadsheets. So that's going to be slide 13. I apologize. So slide 13 is going to show us what you're going to see on our web page. This is going to be the upload information when you're in Bonfire and you've created your vendor and you identify the county that you're in, you'll be able to identify this part. It's going to ask for the current ICIP. You'll see that any file type is allowed it can be an Excel spreadsheet, Word document, and it'll show you later on how to update that. So we do request the current ICIP. Now you can go to the next slide. You'll also see within the question set, which is the fiscal certification information, that you will see question 1.0.5 to provide the current ICIP number for project, and then make sure to upload the ICIP. If you don't submit that information under response, the red box will stay incomplete until you enter the ICIP number. Now, I've had a lot of questions. What is the ICIP number? Now, on the next slide, which is slide 15, you'll see I'm giving you an example of ours. This is what we find. So your entity code is specific to your senior center or to your group. And then to the far right, you're going to see a project ID. So that 42903 would be our project ID for this. As well as you can print the summary to submit to us when you're submitting that. And then on that last slide, which is Marianne was showing us, that's going to be the information in the website that you can go to directly for capital outlay to look for any questions. If you do have questions, just remember also every Wednesday we have technical assistance hours from 3 to 4:30. The link is on the webpage, and you can also find it in all of our signature lines. Marianne, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was super helpful. So I am going to open up our website so you all can see how to access the ICIP. So if you can see my screen, I'm on DFA's website. And on this series of tabs, right now we have the Infrastructure Planning and Development Division, where the ICIP now lives. So I'll just click on that. And the ICIP page is actually linked on our homepage. It's one of the first links that you'll see. But you can also scroll down to the Capital Planning and Policy Bureau section, and the ICIP is linked in here, as well as the publication page and the training information page, which has past training videos and PowerPoints accompanying all the previous trainings that LGD held. So now I'll go to the ICIP website. Or the page that describes the ICIP, and you'll see the updated submission deadlines for this year. as well as the data entry instructions, the guidelines, which we're actually going to upload a new copy of the guidelines this week, just with the new form that we have. Just we were trying to fix some issues with the form today, as well as some worksheets, because I know some of you all find it helpful to be able to print out paper copies of the ICIP form so that you could fill it out, or you can gather your staff and you all can fill it out together. But the worksheet form is not something that you submit. It's just supposed to be an aid to help you complete your ICIP. We have the submission checklist, which is also an aid to make sure you all aren't missing anything for your ICIP. And we have a resolution template, as well as the new user form, which if you have new staff that are working on the ICIP, that we would ask you to fill this out and submit this to us when you submit your final ICIP. And this form will also be updated, and this is how you'll let us know that you completed your ICIP. And then right below that box is the link for direct access to the ICIP database, which I would encourage you to bookmark so that you can find it and you don't have to go to our website every time you want to go on. But I am going to enter a project, and it's not a real project. It's just an example project, and I'm going to enter it on DFA's ICIP. So I entered my login credentials right here, and I know I'm logged in because of the log out button right here on the right-hand side of the screen. That's red. And then after that, you'll want to click on the ICIP button. And then right here, there are some links that may be helpful to you all. But every year we encourage folks to update their entity profile. So this is contacts at your agency. And to edit that, you'll click the edit current entity project, and it'll take you to a new page where you can update. Just because we have had folks reach out, or when we're reviewing ICIPs and we don't have updated contact information, if staff or volunteers have left and this information is old, it makes it very difficult for us to find someone from your entity to contact. So to insert a project, so at this point, the DFA Senior Center that I'm submitting an ICIP for, we already did the planning and already defined the project, obtained maybe some cost estimates, mapped out the approximate phasing of the project and duration of the project, and now I'm ready to enter the project on the website. So this is the first page that pops up when you click enter new project. And there is a note here that the website will time out if you're working on this for, let's say, more than 20 to 30 minutes. So you'll want to make sure you're saving it regularly if you're on any page for a long period of time. The entity code box populates automatically. This is DFA's entity code, as well as the agency or entity name. So we have the Department of Finance and Administration that already auto-populated. And then the next box is the project title. So I am naming my fake project DFA Senior Kitchen Equipment Upgrade. And I'll list myself as the project contact name. Add my email. And on DFA's account, it's popping up first with 2025, but on your accounts, it should pop up with 2027 as the first year that's available to choose, up to 2031. I'm not sure why on DFA's account it does this, but I've logged into other entities' accounts and 2027 is the first one. So because 2027 is the first planning year in this ICIP cycle, I'm going to click 2027, and that's also how we planned our project to be. This is our #1 priority, but if for the next project I would enter rank 2. For project type, so this project is upgrading a current senior center kitchen that DFA has at the Baton building. So I'm going to click renovate and repair as the project type because we're just upgrading and renovating some of the kitchen to be more up to date. The category code, I'm going to choose 1FC facility, senior facilities, because it's a senior facility kitchen. The project location, for some rural communities, you can't necessarily pinpoint an exact physical address, or for other projects like road projects, it might not be possible to just click one point. But for this project, our kitchen is at the Baton building, which is at 407 Galisteo Street. It's in Santa Fe. And the latitude. In the data entry manual, you will find some resources to find the latitude and longitude, and we ask folks to enter it in decimal degrees, which I'll show you. So this website is one of the resources listed in our data entry manual, and it's just gpscoordinates.net. So to find our latitude and longitude in decimal degrees, which is this first box, it also provides another option, but we don't want that option. We want the decimal degrees. I can just enter my address in. And it populates with the exact address. You're also able to, in this map, find your town or your city and click a point, and it'll provide this if you don't have an exact address. So I'm going to copy this over. Oops. And this website is a little wonky sometimes. And the reason why it asks for decimal degrees is because of the dashboard site that we are using requires the information to be entered in that format in order to show up on the map. But with our new system, this may become less important because there is a map built in. And so the DFA Senior Center managers already defined our scope and defined the project. And for the legislative language, it requires that we enter the language to match what they would enter into like the legislative bills. So it requires that we started out with a lowercase 2 and describe what the project is. And this is just the first page of entering your ICIP in, but when you go back to enter it, there are more detailed instructions on how to phrase this. So oftentimes we'll see folks who enter it that's not aligned with what the legislative language is asking for, but you are able to see the format that it wants in the data entry instructions, as well as when you re-enter your project. So our legislative language is just a brief description of the project and the county that it's in. So to purchase and install new commercial kitchen equipment for the DFA Senior Center in Santa Fe County. And county has a lowercase c and no period at the end. And then this next box is the scope of work, which we do ask folks, oh no, thank you, Denise, for letting me know. Okay, so this is the legislative language box that I was just working on. And this is the legislative language for this project, which has a lowercase 2 at the beginning. It describes what we're going to do to purchase and install new commercial kitchen equipment for the DFA Senior Center in Santa Fe County. And county has a lowercase c and no period at the end, which is important if you are applying for, this is more so for other entities when they're applying for capital outlay through Legislative Council Services, and it pulls all of your project information into the Legislative Council Services form. Legislative Council Services wants you to have this format. And the project description and scope of work should be a little bit more descriptive. Maybe you're talking about the exact equipment that you want, but it must match whatever you state in the legislative language. So if I'm purchasing and installing new commercial kitchen equipment, I'm going to want to talk about the kitchen equipment that I'm going to purchase. And so for this, I talked about purchasing, upgrading, and installing new commercial kitchen equipment for meal preparations for seniors who participate in congregate meal services and home delivered meal services. And then I talk about some of the equipment that we are going to purchase. And after you're done with this page, you want to press save. And so it popped up on the home page for all of my projects. And we could see it's for project year 2027. You could see it's my #1 project, so my #1 priority. And you can see the project ID number, which is the number that Tasha mentioned needing for their capital outlay application. So I'm not done. I only filled out the very basic information. So I have to go in and re-edit the project so I can enter in the budget information and answer some other questions. So I'm going to go back and edit current project. So it is a 2-step process. So we see this is the information that I started entering. Question number 5 is total project cost. And you don't have to fill this in because it'll self-populate when I do the project budget, which is question 14. The proposed project start date. One of the big mistakes that we see often is folks will just put a year, like just put 2027, but they should put the month and the year. So we planned it out so that we would start our project August 2027, which is in fiscal year 2027. We're renovating and repairing our kitchen in our senior facility. And you see here, it has the links to resources where you're able to figure out what your latitude and longitude is. We have the legislative language that I just filled out and has more description and guidance on how to do the legislative language and how to format it. And then the scope of work that I copied and pasted in. And this section, this is also another mistake that we see often, is some folks will copy their legislative language and just put it here because they think it adequately describes their project, but we do want some more detailed information. So number 13 is secured and potential funding budget. So in the secured funding sources, you should only list what sources of funding you already have, whether it's the funds from your county or town, or if you got a grant for this project already that you're planning to apply. So in this example, we got a federal grant for $5,000. We received it, or we know we will receive it, let's say April 2025. And we asked for $5,000 and we got $5,000 from this grant. And in this example, we haven't expended any of the funds because we're waiting until we receive more funds. But let's just pretend it's a 3-year grant. So I'm gonna write some more information in the comments. And potential funding sources are funding sources that you are looking to apply to, whether it's other grants or resources, whether it's capital outlay. But let's say we want to request $45,000 from Aging and Long-Term Services, which we're going to apply for today after we do our ICIP so that we have our project ID number. And if I want to add any more comments, I can. So our total project cost is $50,000. And so we have 5,000, we need 45,000, and we're looking to Aging and Long-Term Services to help fill that gap for us. Under the project budget, you want to insert more details. So we have different categories for us because we're purchasing kitchen equipment. We're going to do furnish/equip/vehicles. And we haven't completed this yet, but we do have $5,000 in funding, and we're hoping this year to receive $45,000. And this project budget table can be a little bit more complicated depending on your project, depending on how many years you've worked on your project already, and previous funding that you've received. If your project is taking place over a 5-year period, you will want to have dollar amounts in these different columns. And, you know, in this example, I'm pretending that we already planned, we did planning and design already many years ago. But if you're like currently engaged in the process, you'll definitely want to check off these. But for us right now, none of those are applicable. And this is not a table that auto-populates. So the totals right now say 0, 0, 0, like all across the board. The amount not yet funded shows 0 all across the board. But after I save it and enter the project again, I'll see that the amount not yet funded will be $45,000 because I put $45,000 in this column, and the total will be $50,000. So maybe I'll just save changes now so we could see. So yeah, so 5,000, 45,000, the total project cost is 50,000. The amount not yet funded is listed as 45,000. And this is a project that we don't want to phase out over multiple years and multiple phases. We think we can get it all done in 1 year if we get the funds. So this next question, I put no. Can this project be phased? It's standalone. And if you read this, you'll see that if it's a standalone project, I can skip this box. But if it's a multi-phase project with plan, design, construct, furnishing, I'll want to check multi-phase, and I'll want to complete this table. And one thing that's important about all of these tables that we've seen so far is that you don't want to put any dollar signs or decimals, periods, etc. You'll just want to enter the number, and it'll insert its own commas for you. Question number 16 is, has your local government / agency budgeted for operating expenses for the project when it's completed? Because that is one important aspect of planning. You don't want to build something or acquire new equipment or vehicles if you don't have funds appropriated to pay for those things. So we have, because we're good planners. And if yes, please complete the operating budget below. So it's this box. If no, please explain. So if you click no, you might want to, well, you should explain why you haven't budgeted for operating expenses. And so I'm going to put in the dollar amounts for what we have budgeted. Next question is question 17. Does the project lower operating costs? When we were planning this project out, we looked at a lot of different factors, and it came to be that the project does lower operating costs for us because we will save time on food prep and maintenance costs for all the old equipment that we have currently in our DFA Senior Center. So I put my explanation here. Question number 18 is identifying who will assume the following responsibilities related to this project. And it lists fiscal agent, own, operate, own land, own asset, maintain. For some entities, it may be, all these may be the county or maybe the town that the senior center is in. But I know in some cases, who owns the land and who owns the building or is maintaining the building may be different, or who the fiscal agent is may be different. Scott, do you want to say anything about this box while I'm filling it out?
Sure. Do you mean just about question 18 in general?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so the fiscal agent is typically going to be the entity receiving the appropriation. And in the cases of senior centers, there may be a nonprofit that is either operating or in some cases may own part of the capital outlay being requested or the capital being requested. So if that is the case, and I'm sure this group is well familiar, we do have the anti-donation clause in New Mexico, and really what we seek to do with capital outlay, at least, is to make sure that there's always a solution. There's always a way to navigate this, whether it's payments for the use of the equipment or it's services provided in lieu of payment. But completing this form in the ICIP process helps us to identify whether we're going to need to review a lease operating agreement or have another method of determining fair market value with respect to capital outlay appropriations. So just complete this portion to the best of your ability. And if you have any questions about, who's going to own or operate or anything like that, or anything in this section kind of trips you up, feel free to reach out to myself or Marianne. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. So for this example, General Services Department owns a lot of the state buildings. So I added them, but we maintain and operate this DFA Senior Center. 19 is the last section, and it has different questions about who benefits from the project, how it maintains or advances the region's economy, oversight mechanisms, and more. So I'll go through this real quick because we have just a few minutes left. For this, we looked and planned that the equipment that we will be purchasing will last us 10 to 15 years. Has the project had public input and buy-in? Yes, in this example. Is the project necessary to address population or client growth? And if so, will it provide services to that population or clientele? I imagine in a lot of cases for senior centers, this is a yes. Regionalism, does the project benefit an entity other than itself? I'll say yes. And then you would provide your explanation. And my explanation is that it increases the capacity for more seniors to engage and furthers food security goals. Are there oversight mechanisms built in? Yes. And you put your, either way, you have to put an explanation. So let me copy and paste my explanation in here. Other than the associated temporary construction jobs, does the project maintain or advance the region's economy? Either way, whatever you answer, you should provide a response. I didn't really formulate my whole response to this question yet, but let's just pretend I have a really good answer to that. Does this project benefit all citizens within a recognized region, district, or political subdivision? And it also asks you to explain either way, so please don't leave this box empty. In this, we calculated that 200 seniors will benefit from improved space and equipment in our facility. And then the last one is, does this project eliminate a risk or hazard to public health and or safety? Either way, it does ask you to respond. But for a lot of projects, I would argue almost every single project, enhancements to your infrastructure do eliminate risks and possible hazards. And here is my response for this question. And then I say my changes. And so this project is complete, and afterwards I can print a report for this project by clicking this print report budget, and you can see all of the information that I just entered. And so this is something you can share with your legislators, that you can share with your staff or with your governing body to communicate information about your project. And now that we have a few minutes left, we'd like to answer any questions that we can. Scott, are there any questions in the chat?
There are not, Marianne.
Okay. Feel free to raise your hand if you want to come off mute and ask a question. Okay, let me share my screen. So I accessed this, the ICIP website from DFA's website, which is nmdfa.state.nm.us. I went to Infrastructure Planning and Development Division, and I accessed it from this page. But there's also a search function. So I imagine if you don't remember that it's under the Infrastructure Planning and Development Division, you can search ICIP in the search tool, and it should direct you. So it directs you to the ICIP dashboard, the virtual training page, the publication page, and then it looks like the sixth one down is the ICIP page. And then if you scroll down on this page, the actual database is right in the middle of the page, but it's also in the data entry instructions and it's also in the guidelines. So it is listed in a couple of other places. And like I said before, I would definitely bookmark the page because it can be a pain to have to go to our website and scroll through the multiple pages we have. Rio Reba, do you want to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yes, thank you. This is Christine here from Rio Reba. I'm a little confused because in the aging and long-term services with Bonfire, we've been working on that, but you're saying, well, this is kind of a two-part. We were told in Bonfire, we can bundle our 9 senior centers into one basic form. We just have to put all the different projects. And 2, the long-term services, if we have to turn that one in by April, then do we have to do the DFA ICIP so we can get that number that you say we need for the other one? It doesn't seem like they're jiving, because your due date for the DFA ICIP is May, and yet the aging and long-term services we have to get done by April.
Marianne, do you want me to answer that?
Sure. And I'll just say, you can add, so if you want to do your ICIP projects that you're going to submit to aging, you should do them, you know, before their deadline, of course. But if you want to continue to work on your ICIP throughout the year and maybe formulate other projects and plan them out a little bit better for other years, you know, 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031, I would encourage you to do that even if it's past aging and long-term services capital outlay deadline for this year. But back to you, Tasha.
I was just going to say, that's a great question, but I was just going to say that if you have, not everyone was approved for funding for this last one. So if it's still on your ICIP for the 2025, and let's say it's still one of the priorities, you can submit that. It's just something for us to, again, be able to evaluate and use as a planning tool, as I mentioned before, to make sure that everyone involved with Rio Reba County is aware that this funding is going to, that you're applying for this funding. So that shouldn't be a problem. As far as having the 8 separate, I wasn't sure if you have, for the 8 senior centers, if you have separate entity codes for each of those. That might be a question for Marianne to answer for those multiple ones for building out your ICIP. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, we do have multiple entity codes. Each center has its own code. So in terms of for yours, for the Bonfire, but we just do one form for everybody, right?
Not sure what you mean by one form for everybody. So if you're talking about the application, you only have to submit your fiscal and information, that introductory, once. And then you pick the different application types for each one of the entities and complete those for each one of those. And at the end, you make your decisions and then you upload those. So for the ICIP, you would have to attach whatever ICIPs for all the projects, not just the one. So it would be, let's say you're applying for every single senior center and it's going to be code compliance renovation, then I would have 8 separate ICIPs attached.
Okay, and they can be from the previous year if they were not funded.
Yeah, if they're, as long as they're listed, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Tasha. Alipa has a question. For capital outlay, can we apply for funding this year if the project is listed on the ICIP but not until 2028? Do you mean capital outlay from your legislators or from aging? And go ahead, Tasha. I'm sure you have the answer to that.
Okay. No, I don't have all the answers. Never say that. So if you're going to apply with us, Well, that's going to be interesting because it's going to take you into 2027 to probably for that funding. This next year is going to be a GOB, and that takes at least a year and a couple months for the funding to be authorized. So if you're looking at that you wouldn't start the project, that means you would essentially lose a year for funding. So we might have to have a little bit more information before I can really answer that. But don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to discuss this more with you to figure out, to better understand the nuances with your question.
Thank you, Tasha. Cornelia, did you still want to ask your question? I saw your hand raised.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I have several supervisors here with me attending this virtual meeting. There's one supervisor that wants to ask a question. Oh, there's a letter that.
Okay, is it Gilbert?
No, it's Bess Chili with Crown Point Senior Center.
Okay, go ahead and ask your question.
Hold on, please. Can you hear me?
We can, but it's very low.
Okay, my question is, there's a document that we have to have as an attachment, and the attachment is a letter from our chapters. Now, for each project, is that needed, or is it just one project?
It's one letter. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Tasha.
I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Marianne. I think it has to do with the application. That's the certifying letter. So yes, it can be one letter identifying all the projects. You do not have to send multiples.
Oh, and because there's already one from last year's request. Could I still use that?
No, it would need to be updated.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Good question.
So Gilbert, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yes, I have a question. This is from Raymond Navajo chapter. We used to have a senior center several years ago, and we shut down because of our building, and now we're reapplying. We don't have a senior center here in Rama under Cibola County. We thought we got funded some money, but that was for Rama, the township of Rama. It wasn't for under McKinley. It wasn't for us. So do we have to start all over again if we were once open?
I have a feeling that's a me question. Hello, Gilbert Maria. It's good to see you or hear you again. Thank you for stopping by our offices. Yes, that was a typo. It has been updated within the legislative site to show that that funding was from an approved application submitted by McKinley County. So you would have to start the process of applying and submitting an application for construction. But if it's going to be for a new facility, please know that we're recommending and advocating that you submit for planning and design, because we are requesting that entities start phasing out their projects to make sure that they'll be completed. That'll be more likely to be successful. So make sure you apply for planning and funding first. And just know right now our technical assistance hours started, but if you have any questions regarding the application, don't hesitate to reach out to us, okay?
Okay, we already have our plan design completed.
Oh, that's great. So then you would move forward to new construction, and then there is a question and a document that you need to upload to show us that you've already completed the planning and design phase.
Yeah, and then we got a new chapter president, so she didn't want the location we had selected from the previous president. So we're working on the land withdrawal and all that now.
That would be great. Again, so let us know if you have any questions with the application, and we'd be happy to assist.
Okay.
Okay,